You're just on mute, Niall.
Hello everyone, you're very welcome to this University of Galway webinar relating to the undergraduate degree programs from the School of Law. My name is Niall Horan, I'm part of the Global Galway team, and along with my colleague Lucy Heaney, we'll take you through the various programs with the various academics for those programs. Just before we begin, I pass you over to my colleagues in the School of Law. Just one or two things of note. So we do hope that this is an interactive session. So if you do have any questions during it, please feel free to ask them on the bottom right of your screen. This is also being recorded, so if there's anything you missed or would like to refer to at a later date, you can do so on the Ambassador platform. First off, I'd like to pass you to my colleague, Maria Ryan, who'll take you through, who'll do some introductions and take you through the University of Galway. Maria?
Thanks, Niall, and hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. I'm Maria. I am the Marketing and Student Recruitment Officer within the School of Law. So we're very excited to be talking to you today about the various undergraduate degree programs that are available. So if you are interested in studying as an international student at the School of Law, we'll be talking through each of the programs today, and we have each program director on the call who will also provide a bit more insight into each of their programs, the yearly breakdown and what that looks like. So I'll briefly hand over, starting with Peter for a brief introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Peter O'Loughlin. I'm the Program Director for the BCL program. And I'm also an Assistant Professor in Company and Commercial Law.
Great, thank you. And we'll pass over to Deirdre.
Hi everyone, my name is Deirdre Callanan and I am the Programme Director for Law and Business at the School of Law here at University of Galway.
Great, thanks Deirdre. And we'll pass over to Maeve.
Hello, I am Dr. Maeve O'Rourke. I'm a Senior Lecturer in the Irish Centre for Human Rights that is part of the School of Law, and I am Programme Director for the Law and Human Rights degree.
Great, thanks Maeve. And finally we'll pass on to Diarmuid.
Hi everyone, my name is Diarmuid Griffin and I'm the Programme Director of the Law, Criminology and Criminal Justice degree, and I also teach Criminology and Criminal Justice in the first year of that degree.
Great, thank you. So we will be going through the School of Law as a whole, some of the different features, and then we will pass over to each of the program directors to talk a bit more in depth about each of their programs. There will also be an opportunity for a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any specific questions relating to the course, pop them into the participants chat and we will address them at the end. So starting with the School of Law, so there is a lot of history esteemed within the School of Law. We have been teaching law since 1849, yet we aim to deliver an innovative legal education in a dynamic school that is dedicated to impactful and high quality legal research. Looking at the School of Law at a glance, we were the winner of Law School of the Year in 2024, and we also have some esteemed rankings from the QS World University Rankings for 2026. And something that is really important for a lot of our international students, and something that we always like to note, is that when you are choosing your university, we'll talk a lot about today the programs and the unique features of the courses, but it is also important that you consider where you will be moving to for your international studies. And luckily in Galway, we were ranked first in Europe for student friendliness in 2024. It is a very vibrant, friendly university city, and there's always a lot going on. As you will see on screen, there is a Galway International Arts Festival. There's lots of film, food and culture festivals that take place throughout the year that a lot of our international students enjoy. And as you can see, we are close to a lot of national landmarks, which a lot of our international students explore during off-term times or at the weekend. So it's just, I suppose, it makes your university experience when you are in a cultural and an intellectual hub within the area. And looking at the location of the university, we really are based in the heart of Galway city centre. So as you can see, it's very close proximity. We're approximately 10 minutes walk from the city centre, which a lot again of our international students find really helpful because it's not only a walkable campus, but it's also walkable to the city centre, which makes it really easy to get around. Speaking of our international students, we currently have over 27 nationalities represented in our student body. So this really makes for a diverse and inclusive student body, and also promotes that culturally diverse in-classroom conversations. Looking at some of our unique features, we have an on-campus moot courtroom, and this is a simulated courtroom experience which is really designed for our students to be able to put into practice what they learn in the classroom in that simulated courtroom setting. So all of our students will participate in a mooting module, which is delivered through a talk component, which is made up of lectures, and then an active component where students will participate in a mock trial. So students will work together with other students to research cases and then present arguments, and then these will take place in different moot court competitions. But it really is something that all of our past students say was a transformative experience and really put that in classroom learning into practice and made them feel what their career may be like in the future. And looking at some of our mooting awards, if you do decide to join the School of Law at University of Galway, you will be joining a winning team of international and national mooters. So we have won a lot of awards from our undergraduate competitions. So we have won first place at the National Moot Competition in 2024, which was held at the Criminal Court of Justice in Dublin. And we've also had some of our students win Best Speaker both at local, national and international levels. So with the back-to-back successes, you can really see the emphasis that is placed on preparing our students for their studies and degrees afterwards. Then looking also at the Irish Centre for Human Rights, this is one of the world's premier academic human rights institutions, which is dedicated to the study of human rights, and it is based on campus. And this is a really unique feature, especially for those who select the Law BCL and Human Rights, which Maeve will touch on later on. But it's a really immersive experience for a lot of our students because there are lunchtime seminars, there are guest speakers, there are also a lot of research projects from the academics who teach within the Irish Centre for Human Rights. So it's a really, again, immersive experience for our students that doesn't exist on any other campus across Ireland. So we will touch again on that later, but all of these things are something to note when you are selecting the university for you. Looking at our degree programs, we have 4 programs. So we have the Law BCL, the Law BCL in Business, the Law BCL Criminology and Criminal Justice, and the Law BCL and Human Rights. It is also important to note that all 4 of our undergraduate law degree programs are set up so that any student who wants to progress to complete their solicitor FE1 entrance exams at the Law Society of Ireland or their barrister entry exams at the Honourable Society of King's Inns, they've all been created as full law degrees for this reason. Looking at the program structure, this is a typical example of what to expect. So in year 1, you will be looking at some core law modules alongside some legal skills modules, and then there will be some choice modules as well based on your interests, and that carries on into year 2, and you can also study a language. Then in year 3 of all of our programs, we have built in professional work placement or study abroad. And this really allows our students to, again, put into practice for the professional work placement what they've learned in the classroom and really apply that in a real world setting and get a feel for their potential career upon graduation. or students can study abroad. Again, we'll touch on both of these later on in the slides, but that again is something that we promote with a lot of our students. They can study in other partner universities in Europe or further afield, and it really is a once in a lifetime immersive experience. And then our students come back in year 4, where they take again some core law modules, legal skills modules, and then they have the option to specialize or else complete a guided research essay. So that's just a typical program structure. We'll have each of our program directors talk a little bit more about what to expect in years 1 to 4. Then, as mentioned, there is an option to study a language. We offer legal Irish, legal French, and legal German, and all 3 of these languages are the legal terminology alongside the legal current affairs within each of these languages. So you will be learning the French language, but also, as I said, the legal terminology that goes along with that and would be used in the courtroom in the likes of France and Germany. And you will also be up to date and learn about current affairs through through French or through German within those degree programs. And it is also important to note that you can take Spanish if you do the Law and Business BCL program. So that is a brief overview of, I suppose, the School of Law and the different modules and each of the experiences. I will now hand you over to Peter, who is the Programme Director for the Law BCL.
Thanks so much, Maria. I thought what I might do in terms of taking you through the BCL will be to assess the trajectory that you'll be undertaking through years 1 to 4, both on a substantive level, so the types of modules that you will be required to take and also that you have the option to take, but also the types of skills that we're very much seeking to develop in you over the course of these 4 years. So if you could progress the slide, Maria. So if we take a look at year 1, the emphasis is very much on building the core foundation of legal systems in any legal system, really. So you'll take substantively modules like constitutional law, contract law, or tort law, but also more skills-based modules like understanding the law, which interrogates the legal system, how it operates procedurally, and also modules like critical thinking for lawyers. You'll also have the option to begin your language, should you choose to take it, so legal Irish, legal French, or legal German, or select your first optional module, which will be family and child law. So the focus very much in the first year is on building a very strong core foundation that's central to any legal system, but also very much honing your legal reasoning skills. So that's year 1. In year 2, again, we're continuing with core modules that are staples in any legal system, like criminal law, company law. One, I think, a mandatory module that might be worth noting is EU law, which is a requirement. So that imparts very valuable international benefits in the sense that you're being exposed to and provided with knowledge of one of the world's most influential legal systems, the European Union. So you're being equipped with knowledge of how laws operate across multiple jurisdictions. You're fostering skills in comparative analysis and transnational legal analysis. And all of this is incredibly valuable, particularly for international careers like in international law, in business or in politics, for example, because you're learning to navigate these extremely complex regulatory frameworks and understanding legal harmonization, but within a very specific global trade and governance context. We also expose you to mooting in the second year, which is mandatory as well. And I think the benefit of the mooting module is very much its capacity for bridging the gap between legal theory and practical application. So you're developing your advocacy skills, constructing persuasive arguments, thinking critically under pressure, all the while building, for instance, confidence and your professionalism. Beyond all of these sort of skills that you would be developing in the MOOC module, you're understanding how legal principles actually operate in real life legal disputes. So you'll be much better prepared for legal practice because of that. And this is very valuable in careers that require high levels of analysis and indeed advocacy skills. So that's year 2, and you also have options in year 2. So substantively, you could take things like labor law, information technology law, or intellectual property law, amongst several other optional modules. If we consider now year 3, year 3 is very much the program imposing practical and international dimensions. So you would have the option to undertake either a professional work placement or indeed undertake a study abroad at one of our partner universities. My colleague, Deirdre Callanan, is going to speak about work placement, but just a note about the study abroad and the value of it. It's very much broadening your legal understanding beyond just Ireland, so beyond just one jurisdiction. You're being exposed to different legal systems, different cultures, and indeed different academic and pedagogical approaches to studying and practicing law. You're developing comparative legal analysis, cross-cultural communication, meeting people from different international backgrounds, all of which today really in legal practice are very much essential skills and experiences. So that's what you would do in your 3rd year, either study abroad or the work placement. In year 4, we finish off with a couple of core modules that you are required substantively to take, so equity and land law, and then you have the option to really specialize and take some options that might interest you. So you could take things like commercial law, competition law, environmental law, criminology, or human rights. But one of the I think unique aspects of the final year is that all students are required to undertake an independent research project under the supervision of an academic member of staff. This is especially valuable because you're developing these core skills like critical analysis, research precision, structured argumentation, persuasive writing. This is all very different to a traditional exam format, which emphasizes primarily recall of legal materials. Instead, with this independent research project, you're being required to engage very deeply with complex legal issues over a sustained and longer period of time. You're being asked to evaluate and weigh competing authorities and competing legal arguments. You're constructing original arguments, all of which is strengthening your capacity for self-direction and intellectual confidence, because you're being asked to do things like define a research question, manage resources responsibly, and refine your reasoning. And all of these skills are incredibly valuable to particular aspects of legal practice, like litigation, for example, policy work, or indeed work with judges, so judicial internships, or indeed postgraduate studies, should any of you decide to progress to a master's or even a PhD. So I hope that's been informative in terms of the trajectory, both substantively about the BCL, and happy to answer questions should you have them. Thanks so much.
That was great. Thanks so much, Peter, for the insight into the Law BCL program. If you do have any particular questions on this program, please feel free to add them to the chat and we will address those at the end. We will now move on to the Law BCL in business. So I will hand over to you, Deirdre, to discuss this in more detail.
Thanks, Maria. Essentially, the BCL, just as my colleague Peter outlined, we're building on that with business modules. So you will study all of those law modules, as well as the principal commercial disciplines of accountancy, economics, management, even digital business and analytics. So those streams, those choices you make are through optional modules. So unlike the BCL, where you have optional modules, they will be law modules. In law and business, you have those options for them to be business modules or law modules, or indeed a language. So we might just move on to the next slide there, Maria. So it's all about essentially the understanding of not just some of the legal processes that have already been outlined, but also the fundamentals of business, and looking to prepare graduates to work in a corporate environment. Again, if you wish to qualify professionally in the areas of barrister or solicitor, all of the modules that and the requirements for that will also be covered. Again, if you're moving on to a year 3, we will discuss these in more detail in a few slides later, of study abroad and work placement. But the difference between the BCL and business is the options and those commercial specialisms and pathways that we have outlined to really give you the option of career paths more focused on a corporate legal environment, and if it's a choice that you want to go down, for example, the accountancy route, there are some exemptions that are incorporated and developed in those streams as well. So we're building somewhat on what has previously been spoken about, the BCL, and offering more business modules and getting and it's up to you as the student to decide which pathway would suit you best, or the balance of those optional modules as well. Thanks, Maria.
That's great. Thanks so much, Deirdre, for providing that insight into the law, BCL and business. Again, if you do have any particular questions on this program, feel free to add them to the participants chat, and we will move on to the law, BCL and human rights. So I will hand you over to Maeve, who will discuss this in more detail.
Great, thanks very much. So I am the Programme Director of the Law and Human Rights degree, and like I said at the beginning, I'm part of the Irish Centre for Human Rights. Maria also spoke briefly about it. I suppose that really is the key to the Law and Human Rights degree, that you are a completely integrated member of the Irish Centre for Human Rights as a student of Law and Human Rights. The Irish Centre for Human Rights is the foremost Irish academic institute and one of the foremost in the world, focusing on human rights study, but not just research and study, very much also the practice of human rights law. So all of our staff members not only research, but actively practice in the field of human rights law internationally and in Ireland. We have about 75 master's students every year. We have about 20 PhD students at any time, and a lot of postdoctoral students. So there's a huge community that you are then involved in as an undergraduate student. Your classes take place, your human rights law classes take place in the Irish Centre for Human Rights in our seminar room. And you are invited to every one of our lunchtime seminars, our evening events. And the way we teach human rights to the BCL and human rights students in first year is actually very hands-on. So in second year and the following years, you will learn human rights alongside other BCL students. But in first year, you have an intensive introduction of 4 hours a week in second semester, where you actually do hands-on human rights lawyering as well as, and at the same time as, learning the basics. So at the moment, I'm working with my first years to write a report to the Universal Periodic Review mechanism of the UN Human Rights Council Ireland will be examined this November on its compliance with all of its human rights obligations. And only last Monday, the students and I sat down and we workshopped and talked through and figured out what key issues the students want to bring to the attention of the UN in terms of the most serious human rights violations that are affecting people in Ireland and as a result of Ireland's actions or inactions, for example, on big issues of international injustice as well. And that report will go to the UN, and the students will be co-authors of that report. And another part of their assessment in first year is to use archives that we have in the University of Mary Robinson. Her entire career's archive is in our university library. And also a man called Kevin Boyle, who set up the Irish Centre for Human Rights, who was, as with Mary Robinson, an amazing, trailblazing Irish and international human rights lawyer who set up many human rights organisations, who worked in South Africa against apartheid in the 1980s, who worked on terrible injustices in Northern Ireland in the 1970s, and who set up the Irish Centre for Human Rights with the express purpose of mixing research and study with actual practical advocacy and action on human rights. The director of the Irish Centre for Human Rights is Professor Siobhan Mullally, and she is the UN Special Rapporteur on trafficking in persons, especially women and girls. So you can see at the very top of the Irish Centre for Human Rights is someone who's actually one of the world's leading international experts and people seeking to implement human rights all over the world. So that's to give you a flavour of the, I suppose, general theme of studying human rights alongside your law degree. And maybe if we move on to the next slide, you will just see that it's got the same structure as the other BCL degrees. It is a full law degree. So the nice thing is you can pursue a passion for working on injustice, seeking social change with your full law degree that will enable you to qualify after you finish the degree as a solicitor or a barrister, if that's what you wish to do, which then, of course, can also lead to practicing internationally as a professional lawyer, or to going into the adjacent fields of policy, international relations, what have you. But the point is, it is a full law degree. So in year one, you have an extensive human rights focus alongside regular law subjects. In year two, you start then to also study aspects of human rights with other BCL students. And in year two, you also do your independent research essay that Peter spoke about earlier, but you may well, I imagine, seek to focus on human rights. And that's a great opportunity also to come into more extensive contact with members of our staff to develop your relationships with them for the future. In third year, you will either go abroad or do a work placement. And again, we have an extensive range of work placements that focus on human rights or social justice or civil service sectors that are relevant. And also, if you go abroad, that's an amazing opportunity to study more human rights in whatever university you're in, as well as gaining your language experience. And then in final year, you'll be able to catch up if you need to on whatever it is. If you want to be a barrister, for example, to make sure you have everything you need, or to take further options that you're interested in. So as you can probably tell, I couldn't recommend it more if you are someone who thinks you might want to be a human rights lawyer or work in any way in human rights in the future, because you gain not just knowledge, but practical skills and an amazing network of colleagues and of faculty who can help you in your future career. Thanks, Maeve.
Great. Thanks so much, Maeve. That was great to have that in-depth insight into the Law BCL and human rights. If you do have any particular questions about the Irish Centre for Human Rights or this programme, please feel free to pop them into the participants chat. And we will move on with our final intro from Diarmuid on the Law BCL, Criminology and Criminal Justice.
Thanks, Maria. And as Maria said earlier on, I'm the program director of the Law, Criminology and Criminal Justice degree. It's a full law degree, like the other programs, with an additional specialization in criminology and criminal justice. And sometimes you hear about these terms, criminology. What does it mean? Well, criminology is the study of why people commit crime. And this is something that's occupied humankind for about 100 years. And we're looking at things like, various different issues throughout the degree about, why is it that men commit more crime than women? Why is it that when we look at the prison population, we see people who are from a certain social background, and we're not focusing on people who have committed white-collar crimes? What are people born criminal, or are environmental factors more dictator of people's behavior and their engagement in criminal activity? So as criminologists, you're looking at, again, broader social issues, philosophy, sociology, psychology, law, all these politics, all these different disciplines influence criminologists in terms of how they try to understand the crime problem, right? So criminology and criminal justice in our degree is kind of looking at those issues, but doing so over a 4-year period. And by the end of your degree, you'll have a full law degree with an additional training, understanding, and insight into criminology and criminal justice. So if you want to go to the next slide, Maria. Like everyone else has said, it's a 4-year program. And when you go in your first year, you're doing the same modules as you would if you were doing your law degree or your law and human rights degree. So you're still getting those basic foundational legal modules. But in addition to that, you do a module on criminology and a module on criminal justice. They're kind of they're the foundational modules for those kind of the learning blocks of criminology and criminal justice in terms of moving forward. And as you move through your degree, you gain more specialization in terms of your understanding, but also the types of modules you'll be undertaking. So, for example, you'll do a module in second year called Abnormal and Forensic Psychology, which gives you an insight into how psychologists deal with issues that emerge in the courtroom and how it impacts trials and jury decision-making as well as judicial decision-making. So in final year of the degree, you'll do modules in the area of victimology and policing, giving you kind of insight into the experiences of victims in the criminal justice system and how the criminal justice system deals with people who are victimized. And in terms of policing, you're looking at how the police service manages and deals with the crime problem in terms of enforcement, detection, and bringing the individual from the point of a suspect through the criminal process into the court process. Okay, so there are lots of different kind of aspects of criminology, criminal justice, of the criminal justice system that you can analyze and discuss and learn about over the course of a 4-year program. In third year, you'll do your work abroad or your work placement or your study abroad. In terms of the work placement, you could do work placements with criminal justice organizations, or you could do work placements with law firms, or a mixture of both. And by the end, you have a full law degree, same as everybody else, and you have an additional specialization in criminology and criminal justice. Some of the graduates of the program have gone on to work in the field of criminal justice, while other graduates have gone on to work in the commercial world. So it gives you options in terms of when you graduate from the program, which area you want to focus in, which is one of the unique parts of the degree program. You have a full law degree, but if you choose to specialize in criminology, you can do so after your degree, or if you want to work in the commercial world, you can do so also. I'll pass back to you, Maria.
Great. Thanks so much, Diarmuid, for that in-depth insight into the program. As mentioned, you can pop any specific course-related questions into the participants chat. So as mentioned, within each of the programs, there is an opportunity to either study abroad or go on work placement. So looking at the study abroad aspect, this is for both semesters of the academic year, and we have a lot of prestigious partner institutions globally. So there are opportunities in Europe and then outside of Europe. And we really do promote this with our students, as it is a once in a lifetime opportunity for you to get to not only immerse yourself in another country and culture, but also you do have the opportunity to study unique modules that you mightn't have during your time at University of Galway. So it may be a specific law module within the country that you're studying within, which again opens up our students' minds to that diverse way of thinking. And a lot of our final year students who come back from study abroad do say that it was such an immersive experience, because you're obviously removed from your existing family and friend circle, that you're really, I suppose, learning how to not only manage your workload in terms of your university studies, but also in your personal life. So they always do come back with a lot more confidence, and they're ready to go into their final year having that engaged experience within another culture. Then looking at the work placement, again, this is for the full term of the academic year. So with that, we have a lot of leading partners, both globally, nationally, and with local firms. There are some of the firms that we previously partnered with, and as each of the program directors mentioned, depending on which program you would select, it may differ. So I'll just briefly pass over to Deirdre, who'll provide a couple of examples of students who have previously gone on work placement.
Thanks, Maria. Yes, as has been outlined previously, year 3 is the option of study abroad or work placement. We have 2 placement officers that work for the School of Law, that will place, if that's what you choose, will help with interview prep, CV prep, etc. What we find for students that go on work placement, it's bridging the gap and the practical insight into the legal profession, and marrying that with the gap between academic study and legal practice. You see real cases, client interactions, professional ethics, how that is all played out. It's not just, it's about bringing the theory to practice. On the career development side and employability, it's fantastic 8-month long experience with hands-on work, and also the transferable skills that we spoke about, not just your legal research and writing, but communication, advocacy, analytical reasoning. We see all this being worked on. Ultimately, the professionalism that we see students gain while on work experience. It has been mentioned, depending on your degree program, be it BCL in business, BCL human rights, the BCL, that can be channeled to your degree. That if you wanted a more mix up of law and business placement, or human rights bodies, or justice organizations, that can all be tailored to your request. And what is really one of the most insightful parts for students that we hear is the different legal career paths. Talking, listening, be it a policy advisor, researcher, it helps you identify your personal interest while looking at the professional trajectory going forward. It just gives you a little window, a little insight into what that is. So on the assessment side and just on structured reflection, it's a learning skill. It is fantastic experience, and an option that is open to you in year 3. There's no disadvantage on which it's a win-win, be it study abroad or work placement, but they are on the slide, just some of the organizations that we partner with. On any given year, we place over 80 students to tailor to the degree choice that they have made. So again, if there's any questions, you can pop them into the live chat there.
Great, thank you so much, Deirdre. Then looking at some of our other opportunities, we also have some national and international summer internship opportunities available to our students. So the School of Law has established links with a number of prestigious organizations that do offer summer internships. And an example of this is part of our Suffolk Law program. Our student pictured here, Grace O'Brien, completed a prestigious internship with the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit. So it's just something as well to note that we do have those ties to both national and international internship opportunities. And then one of the questions we typically get asked quite a lot is, where will studying one of these programs lead you? So as mentioned, each of the 4 law degrees are full law degree programs, which means that you are on track to progress to the next stage if you do want to qualify to become a solicitor or a barrister. And that is one of the typical routes that we do see our students go down. But as mentioned, depending on which BCL program that you do choose, this can vary. So a lot of the students from the law, BCL and human rights may progress to work with international opportunities such as that of the United Nations, the European Commission, Court of Justice. Then if you do the likes of the law and business degree, you may go on to complete your accountancy exams or enter into other business graduate training programs. Or again, if you do the law, criminology and criminal justice, you may enter into a role that's more in line with that, maybe something within the public sector or one of the court services. So it is also important to note that all throughout the year, there are a lot of opportunities for you to network and meet with partners. We have a lot of law events and career fairs where you do get the opportunity to meet with, I suppose, graduates of our university and other universities who maybe entered into the graduate training programs of these different firms, or you get to talk with partners of these firms and really kind of build those networks and see where your degree program would line up within one of these firms. Looking at global scholarships, we do have a scholarship that supports one School of Law student with up to 50% off tuition. If you visit that site there, that will lead you to all of the information about the terms and conditions. And then looking at general admissions and entry requirements, Lucy or Niall will pop into the chat the links to our website, which deals with the frequently asked questions when it comes to your applications and entry requirements. However, if there is something that isn't covered on the website, please do feel free to reach out to law@universityofgalway.ie, where we will answer any of your queries. If you do also want to find out more about each of our programs, we have recently updated our website. So each of the programs will have a detailed list of some of the modules. You'll also have access to the faculty who teach on the programs, and you can get an insight into what other students who have taken the programs think based on their testimonials. And as mentioned, that is the email address if you do want to reach out if you have any particular queries. If you do scan the QR code on screen, you'll have access to our social media platforms. We do offer an in-depth insight into what it's like to be a student at University of Galway. There's insight from some of our academics, and you will also get to see some of the array of events that take place throughout the year. So I've definitely hit follow there, and I will open up the floor to any questions. If you do have any, pop them into the participants chat and we will happily answer them now.
Perfect. We have questions coming in here, and indeed we still have time if you would like to continue typing in your questions. Amelia has asked, I wanted to ask why the BCL with human rights only has 20 seats.
Perfect. We can, I can take that question as well, Maeve, and I can pass over to you. But with our admissions, some of the programs have different amounts of students intake, but these are also subject to change each year depending on demand.
Yeah, I have 37 students this year.
Perfect. Good to know. No more questions coming in, but you've all given really good examples of the work placement and the areas that students can go into, and they seem really well prepared as they finish their degrees. Can you give more insight into the specific types of areas or industries that they work in following graduation?
Perfect. I can hand over to some of the program directors. Have you any examples of some recent graduates and where they are now?
I can just go first really briefly. I mean, graduates from law and human rights, you would find training as barrister, training and practicing as a solicitor. They may well go from human rights into commercial law, but they equally may focus on areas like housing law, education, criminal law, immigration. And then the civil service would be quite a popular avenue. Further study as a master's student, for example, and internationally would be quite common. The Irish Department of Foreign Affairs has quite a good graduate recruitment program. And of course, the European Commission, like you already said, Maria, UN and other international bodies would be quite common. Journalism would be another area that some of our students are interested in, not to mention non-governmental organisations and, say, politics in its broadest sense.
Just to add to that, some of the law, criminology and criminal justice graduates, some have gone into the guards, for example. Some of the recent graduates have taken up roles as judicial assistants. So that's a role where after you finish college, you work with a judge and you assist the judge in dealing with their judgments and their daily work as a judge. So that's a really interesting kind of interim path for students when they graduate. Some have gone into the Department of Justice, others have become barristers working in the criminal law field, or just indeed a general law area, so they don't have to go into the criminal law area specifically. And then others have gone into the commercial law world as a solicitor. So there's a whole kind of range of different degrees and potential avenues to pursue once you graduate.
That's great. Thanks, Jeremy and Maeve. Are there any other questions, Lucy?
Yes. Can a student do work placement abroad?
Do you want me to take that, Maria?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, we do allow self-source. So it's not that we would rule it out. It would have to be sourced and brought to our attention, where we would review it to make sure the learning outcomes that will be comparable to a placement here in Ireland. But we haven't had that request thus far, but is it possible? The answer will be yes.
Thank you so much. That seems to be it from the questions, but we have useful links in there, and I know that the QR codes that Maria has provided will also be really useful. So thank you very much for everyone for joining us today. It's been really insightful. Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
That's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out, and we hope to see you at University of Galway soon.
Thank you.